My name is Natalie Hayes. I'm 32 years old. And the night I finally understood what my family thought of me, I was sitting under fluorescent hospital lights, chewing through a protein bar that tasted like cardboard and exhaustion. It was just past midnight. The break room smelled like burnt coffee, sanitizer, and the microwave soup someone had forgotten earlier that evening. My back ached from 12 hours on my feet. My calves were tight. My eyes burned every time I blinked. I had one more patient to check on before I could go home. One more late lab result. One more quiet little responsibility waiting for me before I could collapse into bed and pretend I had a life outside that hospital. I was scrolling Facebook with one thumb, not really looking, not really reading, just trying to keep myself awake. Then I saw the photo, and everything inside me went still. There they were. My mother, my father, my younger sister, Madison, and some man I barely recognized standing beside them in board shorts, holding a beer bottle like he belonged there more than I ever had. They were standing on a balcony, washed in gold light. The ocean stretched behind them like something from a travel commercial. Palm trees, sunset, bare shoulders, sunburned smiles. Hawaii. The caption read, "Finally, a vacation with people who matter." That was all. No heart emoji, no joke, no explanation. Just those words. With people who matter. For a few seconds, I honestly thought my tired brain had misread it. I blinked, leaned closer, and read it again. With people who matter. My stomach tightened. I was not tagged. I was not mentioned. I had not even known they were leaving town. And yet there they were, halfway across the ocean, smiling like they had escaped something heavy. Something inconvenient. Something like me. I tapped the photo and zoomed in. That was when the air seemed to leave the room. The resort behind them was not random. I knew that balcony. I knew that view. I knew the curve of the shoreline and the orange glow over the water because I had stared at those same pictures for weeks. Kona Reef Resort. My dream trip. Months earlier, during a rare, quiet stretch between shifts, I had built an entire imaginary vacation around that place. I saved brochures, I compared room rates, I checked flights I never booked. I told myself, maybe one day, if I picked up enough extra shifts, if nothing broke, if nobody in my family needed money again, I could go. I never booked it. I could not afford it. But somehow, they had. My hands were suddenly cold. I closed Facebook and opened my banking app. I already knew where to look before the screen even loaded. The emergency credit card sat at the top of my linked accounts, quiet and dangerous. It was supposed to be inactive. I only kept it open because my father had a health scare years ago, and back then I had been terrified of them needing something urgent and not having access to money. So I gave them access. Because I was their daughter. Because that was what family did. The account opened. Charge after charge stared back at me. $4,100. $3,200. $5,100. Then smaller ones. Resort Spa. Ocean Adventure Company. Restaurant. Another restaurant. A hotel hold. A boutique charge I did not recognize. Altogether, more than $12,000. All in 3 days. All under my name. For a moment, I did not feel angry. Anger would have been easier. I felt hollow, like some quiet part of me had been scooped out and left on that hospital break room floor. This was not a mistake. They had not been hacked. They had not misunderstood. They had booked flights, slept in expensive sheets, eaten expensive food, let someone rub oil into their shoulders at a resort spa, and charged every bit of it to me. Then they posted a photo telling the world I did not matter. My phone screen blurred, and I realized my eyes were wet. I wiped them once, hard. Then something in me changed. I did not call my mother. I did not text Madison. I did not leave a shaking comment under the photo asking what the hell was wrong with them. I opened the credit card app, disputed every charge, froze the account, and flagged it with the fraud department. That card was dead. Whatever they were doing in paradise, they would not spend another dollar of my money. At 6:03 a.m., while I was walking through the parking garage after my shift, my phone rang. Madison. I stared at her name until it disappeared. Then she called again, and again, and again. On the fourth call, I answered. I heard her inhale like she was about to explain, like she still thought this was a conversation. I did not give her the chance. When you land, I said quietly, you'll be getting served. Then I hung up. The sun was rising over Los Angeles, pale and cold between the concrete levels of the garage. For the first time in years, I did not feel responsible for saving them. They chose this. Every part of it. They did not ask. They did not warn me. They did not even have the decency to hide it. This was not just betrayal. This was theft. And I was done pretending family made it okay. They landed 3 days later. I didn't need to track their flight or check their social media to know the exact moment they touched down. I felt it in the sudden shift, the way my phone started vibrating non-stop, like something had finally caught up to them. By then, the storm had already been set in motion. And it hadn't come from me. It came from my mother. Sometime between their last sunset cocktail and their return flight, she must have realized exactly how bad this was going to get. The Facebook post changed overnight. The caption, "A vacation with people who matter," vanished, replaced with 3 meaningless flower emojis. The comments disappeared too. Every trace of what she had said, erased. Like if she deleted it fast enough, it would never have existed. But it had. And no amount of digital scrubbing was going to undo the way it felt to read it the first time. I saw the edited post at 2:14 a.m. on a Tuesday, halfway through another shift. I stared at it for a long time, not because I was confused, but because I finally understood something I hadn't wanted to admit before. She didn't regret saying it. She regretted being caught. The morning after I found the charges, I had already met with a lawyer. Her office smelled faintly of citrus cleaner and old paper, and she didn't blink once while I laid everything out. The card. The charges. The photo. The caption. She just listened, nodding slowly, fingers steepled under her chin. When I finished, she leaned back slightly and said, almost casually, "This is straightforward." I remember staring at her, waiting for something more complicated. "Unauthorized use of funds," she continued. "Breach of financial trust. Potential fraud." Her tone didn't change. She had seen this before. Not often with parents, but enough. That made it easier. Not emotionally, but practically. And right then, practical was all I had left. So when they stepped off their flight at LAX, sunburned, tired, still carrying the last traces of salt water and denial, they came home to something they hadn't planned for. A manila envelope sitting on the front step. Filled. Notarized. Delivered. Inside was a civil lawsuit naming both of my parents. And Madison. I hesitated for exactly half a second before including her. I didn't believe she had swiped the card herself. But she had stood on that balcony. She had smiled for that photo. She had chosen not to ask where the money came from. That made her part of it. My phone didn't stop buzzing for the next 48 hours. Madison started with texts. Hey, can we talk? Then again. Nat, please. Then again. I think there's been a misunderstanding. After the fourth message, she called. I didn't answer. She called again. And again. Eventually, the messages changed tone. I didn't know the card was yours. I thought Mom and Dad had saved up. I swear, Natalie, I wouldn't have gone if I knew. I read every message. I replied to none. She showed up at my apartment that evening. I saw her through the peephole before she even knocked. Her hair was still slightly damp, like she had rushed there straight from the airport. She looked smaller somehow, like the confidence she wore in that photo hadn't survived the flight home. She knocked once. Then again. Then she just stood there, waiting. 10 minutes passed. Then 15. She shifted her weight from foot to foot, typing something on her phone, deleting it, typing again. At one point, she leaned her forehead briefly against the door. Nat, she said softly, not even raising her voice. Please. I stood on the other side of that door.
Silent.
Still. I didn't move. Eventually, she slid something under the door. A folded piece of paper. Then she left. I waited until I heard her footsteps fade down the hallway before I picked it up. It said, I didn't know. I really didn't. They're panicking. Please. I stared at those words for a long time. Then I folded the paper back up and set it on the counter. It wasn't enough. It wasn't even close. My mother called next. She didn't leave a voicemail, but she sent messages. Paragraphs. Walls of text. I can't believe you would do this to us. We're your family, Natalie. After everything we've done for you. That line made something sharp twist in my chest. After everything we've done for you. I actually laughed. Out loud. In my empty apartment. Because the truth was the exact opposite. I had been the one covering their gaps for years. Madison's tuition. The semester Mom forgot to pay. The property taxes Dad misplaced. The business paperwork when their bookkeeper quit mid-quarter. I had filled in every crack they left behind. Quietly. Consistently. Without keeping score. Because I thought that was what love looked like. Now I understood. They hadn't seen it as love. They had seen it as availability. On the third day, their lawyer contacted mine. The email was polite, careful, neutral. He asked what it would take to resolve the matter. I didn't hesitate. $12,426.37. Plus court fees. Plus filing costs. No installments. No negotiations. No favors. I told my attorney to make it clear. The second I received a certified check for the full amount, I would withdraw the claim. Nothing less. They declined. For about an hour. Then, my phone rang again. Dad. I let it go to voicemail. His message came through seconds later. This is insanity, he said, his voice tight with anger. You're ripping this family apart over a vacation. A vacation. I replayed that part twice. Like maybe I had misheard him. Like maybe somewhere in that sentence he would acknowledge what they had actually done. He didn't. To take legal action against your own parents, he continued. What kind of daughter does that? I deleted the voicemail. Not because it hurt, but because it didn't matter. A few minutes later, my mother texted again. This time, it was just one line. "This will destroy the family." I stared at it. Then I set my phone down. Because she was wrong. The family hadn't been destroyed when I filed the lawsuit. It had been destroyed the moment they decided I was expendable. The moment they used me. The moment they smiled for that photo like I didn't exist. There was a version of me, not that long ago, who would have folded by now. Who would have dropped everything just to stop the tension. To make things quiet again. To make things normal. But that version of me didn't survive Hawaii. She disappeared somewhere between the spa charges and that caption. And what was left behind was someone who wasn't afraid to let things break. It took 6 days. 6 days of silence on my end. And complete chaos on theirs. I didn't need to be in the same room to feel it unraveling. It came in fragments. A text from an aunt I hadn't spoken to in months. "I'm sure this is just a misunderstanding." A message from my uncle in Ohio. "You've always been reasonable, Natalie. Just talk to your mom." Like talking had ever been the problem. Like this was about communication. Not theft. Not humiliation. Not years of being quietly used. I let them twist. I let the deadline pass. And when they failed to respond in time, my attorney filed a motion to proceed by default. 2 days later, their lawyer asked for an extension. I agreed. Not out of kindness, but strategy. The longer this dragged on, the more real it became. That same day, Madison came back. This time, she didn't just knock. She buzzed my neighbor to get into the building, then climbed the stairs and stood outside my door, knocking steadily. 5 minutes. Then 10. "Nat," she said again, softer now. "Please, just talk to me." I stood in the hallway, just out of sight, listening. She wasn't crying. She wasn't yelling. She just sounded tired. "I didn't know," she whispered. "I really didn't." I closed my eyes. For a second, just a second, something in me wavered. Then I remembered the photo, the caption, the charges, and the silence that followed. I didn't open the door. 2 days later, the envelope arrived. Hand-delivered. No postage. Just my father's handwriting across the front. I opened it carefully. Inside was a certified check. $12,426.37. Exact. Behind it was a letter. Handwritten. Uneven blue ink, like it had been rushed. "We don't want this to go any further. We're sorry it got out of hand. Please withdraw the claim. We're still your family. Let's talk." I read that last line twice. "We're still your family." Like that meant something. Like money could rewind everything. Like this was just a misunderstanding that could be smoothed over with a check and a sentence. I deposited the check the next morning. Then I called my lawyer. We filed the withdrawal. Legally, it was done. Clean. Resolve. Closed. But I didn't text them. I didn't call. I didn't say thank you. Because there was nothing to thank them for. They tried anyway. Dad sent an email titled, "We love you." It wasn't an apology. It was a justification. A list of reasons why they thought it was okay. How I had always helped before. How they assumed I would understand. How they thought I would forgive it.
Eventually.
Madison sent a voice message. Her voice sounded smaller this time. Quieter. I'm just glad it's over, she said. We're lucky, to still have each other.
Lucky.
That word landed wrong, like a joke no one else was laughing at. I didn't reply. Not to her. Not to any of them. Because what they didn't understand, what they still hadn't realized, was that the lawsuit was never the punishment. It was the warning. And people who survive a warning without consequences, they don't become careful. They become bold. And bold people make mistakes. Big ones. I didn't know it yet, but they were about to make their biggest one. The letter arrived on heavy cardstock. No greeting. No warmth. No pretense of civility. Just a cold, clipped notification from the family business, my grandfather's company, informing me that I was no longer affiliated with any financial or administrative operations. My access had been revoked. Passwords changed. Permissions removed. Effective immediately. I stood in my kitchen reading it twice, then a third time, waiting for the part where it softened. It didn't. For a second, I felt something sharp and unexpected. Not anger. Something closer to grief. Not because I had lost a title. I had never officially had one. But because of what it meant. They weren't sorry. They were retaliating. That company wasn't just my father's. It was something I had quietly helped hold together for years. Late nights fixing payroll errors when their bookkeeper quit mid-quarter. Untangling invoices. Sorting out tax filings. Answering vendor emails they ignored. I had done it all without a contract. Without a title. Without pay. Because it was family. And now, just like that, I was erased. I folded the letter and set it in a drawer. I didn't call. I didn't text. I didn't even tell my lawyer. Not yet. Because something in me had already started shifting. And I needed to see how far they were willing to take it. The answer came faster than I expected. 2 weeks later, a payment I had been quietly waiting for didn't arrive. It wasn't a huge amount, $1,150. A deferred return from a small investment I had made into the company's expansion 2 years earlier. Back then, my father had framed it casually. Just helping the business grow, he said. We'll square it up later. I hadn't asked for paperwork. That was my mistake. But I had email threads, bank transfers, years of financial statements with my name attached, proof that I was part of it. Or at least, I had thought I was. I sent a polite follow-up email. Then another. 3 days later, I got a reply. Short. Flat. Almost clinical. Your investment has been reclassified as a personal contribution. The board has determined there is no remaining balance owed. I stared at the screen. Then I read it again.
Reclassified.
Personal contribution. No balance owed. They weren't just refusing to pay me. They were rewriting reality. For a moment, I actually questioned myself. Not because I believed them, but because I was tired. Tired of fighting. Tired of pulling truth out of people who kept twisting it. Tired of being the only one who seemed to remember what actually happened. I closed my laptop and sat there in silence. Maybe this was it. Maybe this was where it ended. They had cut me out, taken what they wanted, changed the story, and walked away. Maybe I should too. Then my phone buzzed. A LinkedIn message. From someone I hadn't heard from in over a year. Daniel Reeves. He used to work for my father. Left abruptly. No explanation. At the time, I hadn't thought much of it. Now, his message read, I heard what happened. I think I have something you should see. We met that weekend. A quiet coffee shop tucked between two empty storefronts. The kind of place where conversations stayed private. He was already there when I walked in. A little older. A little more guarded. There was a flash drive sitting on the table between us. He didn't waste time. They've been planning this, he said. My stomach tightened. Planning what? He slid the drive toward me. Cutting you out. I didn't open it there. I waited until I got home, sat at my kitchen table, plugged it into my laptop, and started clicking through the files. Emails. Internal threads. Conversations I had never been meant to see. At first, it was subtle. Language that made my role sound informal.
Temporary.
Unrecorded.
Then it became clearer.
Explicit. Calculated.
Discussions between my father and his business partner about how to structure things off the books. How to avoid listing my name on official distributions. How to make my contributions look like favors instead of financial involvement. Just in case things go legal. My chest tightened. They had planned this. Not after the lawsuit. Before it. Then I found the email. Dated 5 months before the Hawaii trip. From my father. I know Natalie's got savings, but she's tight. We'll book the trip and sort it out later. She'll forgive us, like always. I leaned back slowly in my chair. Read it again. Then again. Each time, the words felt heavier. Not just because of what they said, but because of how casually they said it. Like I wasn't a person, just a resource. I didn't cry. Not this time. I just sat there in the quiet, feeling something settle into place.
Clarity. Cold. Sharp. Unavoidable.
That night, I forwarded everything to my attorney. Every email, every document, every piece of proof. Then I called her. She picked up on the second ring. I've gone through it, I said. There was a pause on the other end. Then her voice shifted. Send it all. 2 days later, she called me back, and I could hear it in her tone before she even spoke. This was different. You don't just have a claim, she said. You have a case. I closed my eyes. For the investment? For everything, she replied. They misrepresented your involvement, altered documentation, denied rightful compensation. This is fraud, Natalie, and we can prove it.
Fraud.
The word landed heavy.
Final.
There was no walking this back. No softening it. No pretending it was a misunderstanding. I looked out the window of my apartment. The city moved like nothing had changed. Cars. People. Lights flickering on as the sun went down. And somewhere across town, my family was still living inside a version of reality where I would eventually forgive them. Where I would stay quiet. Where I would let it go. I picked up my phone. I want to file, I said. We filed that week. $15,000 for the unpaid investment. $65,000 in damages.
Breach of verbal agreement.
Fraudulent misrepresentation.
Retaliatory action.
Total $80,000. This time, there were no hesitations. No softened edges. No space for negotiation. The papers hit their office on a Wednesday morning. By 3 p.m., my phone was ringing again.
My mother. I let it ring.
Then again. Then again. 6 times. On the 7th call, she left a voicemail. Her voice was different this time. No guilt. No anger. Just panic. Call me, Natalie. Please. We need to talk. An hour later, my father called. I almost didn't listen to the message, but something made me press play. I don't know what you think you're doing, he said, his voice tight, strained. But this will crush the business. You need to stop. We gave you the money. You got what you wanted. You don't need to ruin us. I let the message finish. Then I sent it to my attorney. The email started after that. Their lawyer. Then Madison. Then both.
Offers.
First, $20,000. Then $40,000. Each one dressed up like compromise. Like generosity. Like I should be grateful. I rejected them all. Because this wasn't about a piece. It was about the whole truth. Every hour I had worked without recognition. Every dollar they had erased. Every lie they had told themselves about me. They pushed back for a week. Then the resistance started to crack. 3 days before the hearing, I got another envelope. No note this time. No handwriting. No apology. Just a check. $80,000. I stared at it for a long time. Then I set it down. Not because I was unsure, but because I understood something now. This wasn't closure. This was surrender. I deposited it the next morning, called my attorney, filed the dismissal. Legally, it was over. But emotionally, there was nothing finished about it. Nothing repaired. Nothing healed. They didn't call. They didn't text. They didn't even try. Just silence. I moved on. Or at least, I started to.
A smaller apartment. Closer to the hospital. Quieter.
Cleaner. Mine. I stopped taking extra shifts. Started sleeping again. Booked a weekend trip to Seattle. Nothing extravagant, but it was mine. Every second of it. Every dollar. No guilt. No obligation. No one else attached to it. 2 months later, the letter came. From the company. From the board. An invitation. A reconciliation meeting. A discussion about future cooperation. I read between the lines instantly. They were struggling. The hit hadn't destroyed them, but it had shaken something loose. Clients were nervous. Vendors were asking questions. Reputation was slipping. And now, they wanted me back. I let the letter sit for a week. Then I wrote one of my own. Short.
Clean. Final.
I thanked them for the invitation. Then I declined. No interest in returning. Not now. Not ever. I wished them well. But it would not be with my help. I mailed it back in their own envelope. That was it. That was the end. Or at least, that's what I thought. 3 weeks passed. Quiet ones. The kind I hadn't had in years. No calls. No messages. No tension sitting in my chest when my phone lit up. I started to feel like my life belonged to me again. Like I could breathe without waiting for the next problem. Then the email came. Buried in my spam folder. Subject line: Please read this. It's about the company. The sender. Nicole R. It took me a few seconds to place the name. Then it hit me. Nicole. My father's assistant. The one who had left for health reasons. The one no one ever really talked about after she disappeared. Her message was short. I know what happened. I have something you need to see. One meeting. After that, I'm gone. I almost ignored it. Part of me thought it was a trap. Or worse, another manipulation. But Nicole had never been like that. She didn't play games. So I agreed. We met at a small cafe in Echo Park. Outdoor seating. Too much noise. Not enough parking. She was already there. A manila folder sitting in front of her like something out of a courtroom drama. She looked thinner, tired. But her eyes were sharp, focused, certain. When I sat down, she didn't smile, didn't ask how I was, didn't pretend this was anything other than what it was. She slid the folder across the table. I wasn't supposed to keep any of this, she said quietly. I was told to shred it. I opened it, and everything changed. Inside were copies, not summaries, not vague references, actual copies. Internal memos, financial spreadsheets, email printouts, transfer records with signatures. The kind of documents people only keep when they know something isn't right. I flipped through them slowly at first, carefully, like if I moved too fast, I might miss something important. Then I saw my name. Not in passing, not casually, formally, attached to an account I had never heard of. A secondary investment fund, under the company's development arm. 2 years ago. My breath caught. 2 years ago? I had given them $1,100. I remembered it clearly now. A small contribution, barely more than a gesture, to help expand their equipment inventory. My dad had said it would generate modest returns. Nothing big, just something to show appreciation, something to make me feel included. I never questioned it. I trusted them. But what Nicole had placed in front of me told a very different story. The account hadn't stayed small. It had grown, then grown again. Contracts, subcontractor deals, rental agreements, layered income streams feeding into it quietly over time. $45,000. That's what it had become. $45,000. And I hadn't seen a single dollar of it. My fingers tightened on the edge of the paper. I flipped to the next page. Quarterly reports. Clean, professional. Consistent. My name appeared in the first one. Then the next. Gone. Just like that. No note, no explanation, no record of removal. Just erased. They knew you wouldn't check. Nicole's voice cut through the noise in my head. I looked up at her. She was watching me carefully, not with pity, with certainty. You never questioned them, she continued. They counted on that. I swallowed. Because she wasn't wrong. I hadn't questioned them, not when the numbers felt off, not when things went quiet, not when the explanations didn't quite add up. I had trusted. That had been my first mistake. This was never about the vacation, she said softly. I blinked. What? That trip? She said, nodding slightly. That's just the part you saw. She tapped the folder lightly. This is the part they thought you never would. A cold realization spread through me. Slow, heavy, unavoidable. The Hawaii trip wasn't the betrayal. It was the slip. The moment they got careless enough to be visible. Everything else had been happening quietly for years. Nicole reached into her bag and pulled out a flash drive, smaller than the one Daniel had given me, but somehow heavier. "Everything's on here," she said. "Emails, reports, internal notes." She hesitated for just a second. "I didn't keep it because I wanted to take sides," she added. "I kept it because it was wrong." I looked at her. Why now? For the first time, something shifted in her expression. Not guilt, not fear, something closer to frustration. "They told people I left because I was sick," she said. Her jaw tightened slightly, like I couldn't handle stress. I said nothing. She continued. "The truth is, I confronted your dad." My chest tightened. "What did you say?" "I told him what he was doing wasn't just unethical," she replied. "It was illegal." A pause. "I told him you deserved to know." My throat went dry. "And?" Her eyes met mine. "He told me to stay out of family business." The words landed hard, familiar, predictable. And then? I was encouraged to resign. Of course she was. People who tell the truth don't last long in systems built on silence. She stood up then, just like that, no hesitation, no drawn-out goodbye. "I don't need anything from you," she said. "But you should know." She glanced down at the folder. "This goes deeper." A beat. "They're still doing it." Then she walked away. Just like that. Leaving the folder, leaving the flash drive, leaving me sitting there with the full weight of something I couldn't unsee. I didn't move for a long time. The noise of the cafe faded into something distant, muted, irrelevant. Because everything that mattered was sitting right in front of me, and none of it could be undone. I drove home in silence. No music, no calls. Just the low hum of the engine and the steady, growing clarity in my chest. When I got inside, I didn't even take my shoes off. I went straight to the kitchen table, plugged in the flash drive, opened the files. 3 hours passed, then 4, then 5. I didn't notice. There wasn't just one account. There were 3. 3 separate funds, all tied at some point to my name, all quietly adjusted, reassigned, redistributed, until my involvement disappeared completely. And it wasn't just me. That was the part that hit hardest. Buried in a thread near the bottom of one email chain was another name. My cousin. Someone who had been promised a share in a side project. Someone who had never received it. There were notes, plans, discussions about doing the same thing to her. A pattern, not a mistake, not a misunderstanding. A system. I leaned back in my chair slowly. My eyes burned. Not from tears, from staring too long at something that finally made sense. They paid me once, the $12,000, then the $80,000. I had thought that was the end, that I had pushed back hard enough, that I had forced some kind of balance. But this wasn't about balance. This was about exposure. I wasn't just the daughter they underestimated. I wasn't just the one who finally fought back. I was the one holding proof of everything. I reached for my phone, paused, then set it back down, because for the first time, I wasn't reacting. I was choosing. Outside, the city moved the same way it always had. Cars passing, lights shifting, people living their lives without any idea what was unfolding inside mine. And somewhere across town, my family was still operating under the same assumption, that everything had been resolved, that I had taken the money, walked away, closed the door. They thought they were safe. I looked back at the screen, at the documents, at the names, at the numbers, and something cold settled into place. Not anger, not revenge. Something quieter, stronger. Clarity. This wasn't just a family problem anymore. This was fraud. Systemic, deliberate, documented. And suddenly, I wasn't just the daughter they had used. I was the one who could bring all of it into the light. I picked up the flash drive, turned it slowly between my fingers. Then I reached for my phone. Because this time, I wasn't calling to warn them. I was calling to end it.